Question number 63, Evolve. Evolve is a real estate company which is listed on stock exchange and has a year end of 31st of August. ठीक है, चेक कर देना क्या पूछा है. Advice on how the above transaction should be correctly dealt with in its financial statement with reference to relevant international financial reporting standards. At 31st of August 2016, Evolve controlled a wholly owned subsidiary Resource, whose only assets were land and building, which were all measured in according with IFRS, मतलब International Financial Reporting Standards. On 1st of August 16, the Evolve published a statement stating that a bidding offer for the sale of the resource had been made and accepted. At that date, the sale was expected to be completed by 31st of August 16. The non-current assets of resource were measured at lower of carrying amount of fair value less cost to sell at 31st of August 16 based on the selling price at the bidding offer. This measure was in accordance with IFRS 5 non-current asset held for sale and discontinued operation. However, Evolve did not classify the non-current assets of resource as held for sale in the financial statements at 31st of August 16 because there were uncertainties regarding the negotiations with the buyer and the risk that the agreement would not be finalized. There are no disclosures of these uncertainties, and original agreement was finalized on 20th of September 16. According to IFRS 5, non-current asset held for sale, the asset to be classified as held for sale has to fulfill the following criteria. First of all, the sale should be highly probable. The management should be committed upon selling the non-current asset. There's an active program in place in order to locate the buyer. The price at which the product is being marketed is reasonable. The product is actively marketed by the entity. The sale is highly probable. The sale is probable to take place within the 12 months, and the sale is probable at the current state, मतलब at its current condition. In the current scenario, we can see that Evolve had published a statement stating that bidding offer for the sale of resource has been made accepted, had also been accepted, and the sale was expected to be completed by 31st of August 16. According to IFRS 5 non-current asset held for sale, it should be measured at lower of carrying amount and fair value less cost to sell, which it had been measured at 31st of August 16. However, even though all the above conditions had been satisfied, Evolve did not recognize the non-current asset as held for sale. This is because there were uncertainties regarding negotiations with the buyer and the risk that the agreement would not be finalized. The uncertainties regarding the price of the product or the price of the asset at which it has been marketed is not relevant, and thus is not relevant. Also, even if the agreement would not have been finalized, the asset still would have been held for sale because the management was committed on selling the asset. If the sale was not going to take place with this buyer, then some other buyer would have been found by the entity by heavily or actively marketing the product. Thus, or sorry, not product, the subsidiary. Thus, uh, Thus, at 31st of August 16, the product should have been classified as held for sale. The disclosure of the uncertainties, an original agreement was finalized on 20th of September 16. Now that the original agreement was finalized on 20th of September 16, uh, we can say that it is a adjusting event as per IAS 10 events after the reporting date because of the fact that there were indications that the sale would take place at the reporting date. There were indications ऐसा. This is an adjusting event. Actually ये एक ना सब्सिडरी का सेल जो रहता है, देखो प्लान वैन तो सब बना हुआ था, so I think it should be an adjusting event only. चेक कर लेते हैं एक बार. Evolve. IFRS 5 non-current assets held for sale. IFRS 5 non-current asset held for sale and discontinued operations says that the asset should be classified if the carrying amount will be required primarily to the sale and the sale is highly probable. The sale does not require existence of binding sales agreements in order to classify the non-current asset as held for sale. सेम चीज जो अपन ने बोली, लेकिन इन्होंने बाइंडिंग सेल्स एग्रीमेंट ये वर्ड बोला जो काफी इंपॉर्टेंट है. In order to classify the non-current asset as held for sale, but only high probability of the occurrence. IFRS 5 states that the appropriate level of management must be committed to plan to sell the asset to be probable. Involves acceptance of bidding of binding offer in August 16, and the publication of the information thus indicated high probability of sale. Despite uncertainty surrounding the sale, the transaction remained highly probable at 31st of August 16. अभी उसके बाद other criteria which indicated that the non-current asset should be shown as held for sale should be the fact that buyer for the non-current asset has been found and the sale occurred within 12 months of the classification of the item as held for sale. The asset was actively marketed for sale at a price which has been accepted despite the uncertainty that 31st of August 16. Events after the reporting period indicate that the contract was not significantly changed or withdrawn. The fact that information regarding uncertainties was not publicly disclosed is irrelevant. तो अभी तक उन्होंने वो आईएएस के बारे में नहीं बताया, उन्होंने उस आईएएस का नाम नहीं लिया, लेकिन उन्होंने बस ऐसा बोला कि इवेंट्स आफ्टर द रिपोर्टिंग पीरियड इंडिकेट दैट द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट वाज सिग्निफिकेंटली चेंज्ड और was not significantly changed or withdrawn. The fact that the information regarding uncertainties was not publicly disclosed is irrelevant. Evolve cannot apply IFRS 5 measurement criteria without classifying the item as held for sale in its statement of financial position, particularly as impairment may arise when using the such criteria. Thus, as the non-current asset met the criteria as held for sale, they should have been measured and presented as such in the financial statements. Assets classified as held for sale are presented separately within the current assets in the face of the statement of financial position. I am just upset कि मैं यहाँ पे ये भूल गया पॉइंट बोलना कि says that the asset should be held for sale. The carrying amount can be recovered primarily through the sale. बाकी सब ऑलमोस्ट हमने सब कुछ सेम बोला हुआ है. लास्ट में इन्होंने खाली बोला है कि ये नॉन करंट एसेट्स हेल्ड फॉर सेल दिखते कहाँ पे है, बस ये उन्होंने बोला हुआ है. ठीक है. ओके. Evolve operates in a jurisdiction with a specific tax regime for listed real estate companies. Upon adoption of the tax regime, the entity has to pay a single tax payment based upon the unrealized gains of its investment properties. Evolve purchased Monk, whose only asset was an investment property for 10 million. The purchase price of the monk was below the market value of the investment property, which was 14 million. The Evolve chose to account for the investment property under the cost model. However, Evolve considered that the transaction constituted a bargain purchase under IFRS business combination. As a result, Evolve accounted for the potential gain of 4 million in the profit or loss, increased the cost of the investment property to 14 million. At the same date, Evolve opted for a specific tax regime for newly accounted investment property and agreed to pay corresponding tax of 1 million. Evolve considered that the tax payment qualified as an expenditure. So, necessary to bring the property to the condition necessary for its operation. Therefore, was directly attributable to the acquisition of the property. Hence, the tax payment was capitalized and the value of investment property was stated as 15 million. भाई ये तो completely गलत चीज किया भाई मतलब बंदे ने. क्या ही फ्रॉड भाई. देखो इवॉल्व ने मॉन्क को परचेज किया और जिसका ओनली एसेट था प्रॉपर्टी फॉर 10 million. द परचेज ऑफ द मॉन्क वाज बिलो द मार्केट value of the investment property which was 14 million. Evolve chose to account the इन्वेस्टमेंट प्रॉपर्टी अंडर कॉस्ट मॉडल। सबसे पहली बात तो whenever an entity gains a bargain, enters into a bargain purchase transaction, entity should reassess whether they have correctly accounted or calculated the amount of the assets and liabilities, because bargain purchase are very rare transactions in nature. If according to IFRS 3 business combinations, business is an integrated set of activities and assets when put together in order to generate or produce funds for the investors, or to produce funds for the investors. um I think इतना ही था ना। नहीं, produce returns for the investors, yes, ये था। However, it is important to identify whether the purchased transaction leads to a purchase of business or purchase of an asset. In the current scenario, we can see that when Evolve purchased more, it was not for the business purpose, it was for the asset purpose, and thus it was deemed to be a purchase of an asset. Um, hmm. Evolve cannot account. Evolve has chosen to account the property under cost model. However, it is an investment property and it won't give a fair presentation if accounted under cost model, because the values of properties keeps on changing. Because according to IS 40 investment property is a property which has been purchased in order for rental income or capital appreciation. In the current scenario, that there is no rental income involved, and thus we can say that the investment property has been purchased for capital appreciation. Thus, accounting under cost model won't give a fair presentation. The to account for the potential gain in the profit or loss is correct. वो बराबर है. That is correct. Um, You can actually एक मिनट रुक जाओ, मैं क्या बोल रहा हूँ कि because the revaluation model will be chosen, the potential gain of 4 million should be recorded in the profit or loss. वहां तक सही है. Now the property's valuation should be made till 14 million and the carrying amount of the property would be 14 million. At the same time, we were opted for a specific tax regime. The tax which has been paid, which is 1 million, does not constitute as a direct expenditure that can be capitalized in the value of the asset. Also, the property which has been purchased has not been purchased, will not be accounted for under IAS 16 but rather IAS 40, and thus this should be taken into consideration that the cost of directly capitalizing the attributable expenditure is not allowed in IAS 40 investment properties. Thus, the 1 million will not be accounted for, and even if IAS 16 was chosen, tax expense, the expenditure which is incurred as a tax payment cannot be a direct attributable expenditure to bring the asset to its present condition of use, and thus capitalization cannot take place. Thus, the asset will have a carrying amount of 14 million only in the carrying amount, in the financial position. ये अपन बोल देंगे. ये देखो, IFRS 3 business combination must be applied when accounting for business combination, but does not apply when acquisition is not of a business. In this case, the acquisition was essentially that of an asset, and therefore the measurement requirements of the IFRS 3 would not apply. ऐसा तो ये अपन ने भी बोला था एक्यूरेटली IFRS 3 के बारे में कि ये बिजनेस कॉम्बिनेशन नहीं था, ये एसेट का एक्विजिशन था. इन्होंने काफी छोटा रखा है एक्चुअली आंसर को, अपन ने बहुत ज्यादा बोल दिया, बट ठीक है. IAS 40 investment property states that the cost of investment property comprises of the purchase price and any directly attributable ओके ओके, सो IAS 40 के अंडर भी परचेज प्राइस और डायरेक्टली एट्रीब्यूटेबल एक्सपेंडिचर आते हैं. तो इन्होंने IAS 16 वाले एरिया को इन्होंने कवर ही नहीं किया, इसलिए उनका आंसर और छोटा हो गया. such as professional fees and legal services. Hence, if Evolve wishes to use the cost basis for accounting for the investment property, the potential gain should not have been recorded in the profit or loss और added to the cost of the asset. तो इसलिए अपन ने इस चीज को एक अलग वे में रखा। अपन ने बोला कि अगर रिवैल्यूएशन मॉडल यूज कर रहा है तो फिर पीएनएल में डालना उस गेन को सही बात है। इन्होंने बोला कि अगर कॉस्ट मॉडल अप्लाई करे तो फिर डालना सही बात नहीं है, ऐसा इन्होंने बोला है, विच इज ऑल्सो करेक्ट। The specific fiscal treatment and the tax to be paid were not linked to bringing the asset to the condition necessary for its operations, as the asset would have been operational without the tax. As such, tax is cost linked to the activity of Evolve and should not be accounted for as an expense in accordance with IAS 12 and should be. As such, tax is costly and to the activity of Evolve and should be accounted for as an expense in accordance with IAS 12 income taxes and included in the profit or loss for the period। ऐसे इन्होंने बोला हुआ है, सही बात, ये हो गया। अभी नेक्स्ट, the International Accounting Standards Board is undertaking a broad-based initiatives to explore how the disclosure in the financial reporting can be improved. The disclosure initiative is made up of a number of implementation and research projects, one of which is concerned with materiality. The board have now issued a practice statement in which it provides further guidance on the application of materiality to the financial statements. Discuss why the concept of materiality is so important to prepare the users of financial statements. Your answer should include reference to the board's materiality practice statement. Professional marks will be awarded in part B for clarity and quality of presentation. Any information is material if the omission, misstating, or obscuring the information would lead to would influence the economic decisions of the users. ठीक है, ये अपन पहले बता देंगे। Materiality is an important aspect to cover when the financial statements are being reported. This is because the disclosures in the financial reporting are based upon various materiality factors, such as if the materiality level is kept too low when calculate when giving the disclosure notes in the financial reports. If the material revenue is kept too low, then this might lead to a clutter of disclosures given in the financial year reports, and might lead to investors uh, not paying attention on the important aspects of the financial statements that they should have. Uh, on the other hand, if the materiality level is kept too high, then this might lead to very few disclosure notes being given in the financial reports, because of which the investors or financial users will not have that many disclosure notes to make their relevant decisions or to help them make their decisions. Thus the disclosure notes, uh, or nahi, thus actually the concept of materiality is quite judgmental in nature and depends upon management's uh, judgment and estimates। अपन बता देंगे। और क्या बता सकते हैं। एक तो वो पोटेंशियल इन्वेस्टर का पॉइंट ना मेरे को लास्ट में रखना है। Materiality is subjective from company to company. Information which is material for one company might be immaterial for the other. Thus, this can also affect the comparability of the disclosure notes from one company to the other। Preparers और क्या, एक मिनट। इंटरनेशनल अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड बोर्ड इज अंडरटेकिंग अ broad based initiative to explore how disclosure management can be improved। The disclosure incentive is made up of a number of implementation and research projects, one of the materiality। The board have now issued a practice statement in which देखो, डिस्क्लोजर नोट्स को इम्प्रूव करने में और क्या क्या बोल सकता हूँ कि एक तो कंसाइज होना चाहिए, एंटिटी स्पेसिफिक होना चाहिए, शुड नॉट बी जनरल इन नेचर। लेकिन और मुझे मटेरियलिटी को लेके बोलना है 12 मार्क के लिए। पोटेंशियल इन्वेस्टर का पॉइंट एक बोल देता हूँ कि नहीं, actually, if there are excessive disclosure notes given in the financial statements, then this might be monotonous for the investors and various potential investors who wanted to lend their money to the company might not, who wanted to invest their money in the company might invest their money elsewhere. Um, there are no certain strict numerical limitations that have been implemented on the number of disclosures that should be given or not given in the financial reports. However, a concise and entity specific disclosures help the investors to make their decisions. Uh, thus it depends upon the management judgment about how many disclosures do they have to provide and what is the quality of their disclosures as well. Materiality. मैं मटेरियल में और क्या क्या बोल सकता हूँ? फेथफुल रिप्रेजेंटेशन नहीं बोल सकते। नहीं, चेक करना पड़ेगा आई थिंक मटेरियलिटी के ऊपर। आई थिंक जितना मैंने बोला है वो तो सही है, लेकिन उतना आई डोंट थिंक इनफ है, उसके आगे भी इंफॉर्मेशन रिक्वायर्ड रहेगी इन लोगों को। डिस्क्लोजर नोट्स के बारे में तो मैं और भी बोल सकता हूँ कि द डिस्क्लोजर नोट शुड टेक इनटू कंसिडरेशन द risks and opportunities which the entity estimates that will be occurring in the future, and how is the entity prepared for the same. This helps the investors know or look at the company's future or the internal operations of the company from the director's viewpoint. Um, and that also helps the investors understand how much the directors are faithfully representing the information to the company. हाँ, चेक कर लेते हैं यार एक बार। मैंने मुझे इससे ज्यादा बड़ा नहीं लिखा है, लेकिन फिर भी an item if materially omitting, misstating, or obscuring it might influence the economic decisions of the users of the financial statements. When an entity is estimating materiality, it is considering whether information is relevant to the readers of its own financial statements. In other words, materiality is entity specific. ये अपन ने बोला concise होना चाहिए, entity specific होना चाहिए, and an entity should assume the users of the financial statements have reasonable knowledge of business and accounting. Materiality practice statement emphasizes that materiality judgments are not just quantitative transactions that trigger non-compliance with laws or what impact future operations may affect the decisions, even if the monetary amounts involved are small. Okay. Importance of materiality to financial reporting. The purpose of financial reporting is to provide information that will help the investors, lenders, or creditors make their economic decisions about providing an entity with the resources. मतलब कंपनी में इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए कि नहीं, ये वाला पॉइंट अपन ने कवर किया था। It is important that the management consider materiality throughout the process of preparing financial statements. This should ensure that relevant information is नॉट ओमिटेड और मिसस्टेटेड। तो कोई भी मटेरियल ओमिट या मिसस्टेट नहीं होनी चाहिए, वो अपने को कंसिडर करना चाहिए। एक्चुअली अपन डेफिनेशन से भी पॉइंट्स उठा सकते थे कि ओमिटिंग या मिसस्टेटिंग नहीं होना चाहिए। आइडेंटिफाइंग इंफॉर्मेशन दैट माइट बी मटेरियल, असेसिंग whether the information is material, organize the information in draft financial statements, review the draft financial statements. ओके, ये उन्होंने ऑडिट के कुछ पॉइंट्स उठाए हुए हैं। मैनेजमेंट शुड प्रोड्यूस फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट दैट आर फ्री फ्रॉम एरर। तो ये वाला इन्होंने फेथफुल रिप्रेजेंटेशन का उठाया, ये वाला भी ले, अच्छा पॉइंट है, ये वाला भी ले सकते हैं। However, the impact of certain transactions might be omitted or simplified as long as resulting errors are immaterial. The materiality practice statement recognizes that simplified accounting procedures, such as writing of capital expenditure below 1,000 to profit or loss, can greatly reduce the burden of the financial reporting without causing material misstatements. The concept of materiality does not help to determine whether transactions are recognized in the financial statement, but also how they are presented. Management may decide to present some material transactions as separate line items in its financial statements, whereas the effects of other material immaterial transactions might be aggregated. तो ये उन्होंने बताया है कि कई बार मैनेजमेंट कुछ बहुत ही मटेरियल आइटम्स को शायद सेपरेटली रिकॉग्नाइज कर सकता है, या फिर कुछ ऐसे आइटम्स को जो इमटेरियल है उनको एग्रीगेट कर सकता है। ये वाला काफी अच्छा पॉइंट है, वी कैन कंसिडर दिस। एक बार इसमें स्क्रीनशॉट ले लेता हूँ, फिर आई कैन लर्न दिस लेटर। ये एक्चुअली ना काफी ज्यादा ऑडिट कप के मतलब पॉइंट्स है, एग्रीगेशन वगैरह, मैंने वहां से उठाए हैं। The practice statement emphasizes the importance of these decisions. Too much detail can obscure important information, whereas over aggregation leads to loss of relevant detail. ये भी अपन ने बोला था। Material assessment should also impact disclosure notes. Guidance in this area is important because the financial statements have been increasingly cluttered in recent years, and as the disclosure requirements in the IFRS standards have expanded. However, as IAS 1 presentation of financial statement states, an entity need not provide a specific disclosure required by an IFRS standard if the information is immaterial. तो इन्फॉर्मेशन इमटेरियल है तो IAS 1 खुद बोलता है कि उसको स्पेसिफिक डिस्क्लोजर देने की जरूरत नहीं है। ये वाला भी एक पॉइंट मैं स्क्रीनशॉट लेके रख देता हूँ। ठीक है। Not the practice statement emphasizes that the common information needs of primary user groups. The practice statement emphasizes that common information needs of primary user groups should always be considered, and that the disclosure requirements in IFRS standards should not be treated as a simple checklist. तो जो डिस्क्लोजर रिक्वायरमेंट्स है उनको सिर्फ एक चेकलिस्ट की तरह नहीं ट्रीट करना चाहिए। वो emphasize on common information needs of primary users should always be considered, and the disclosure requirements in the IFRS standard should not be considered as a simple checklist। मतलब वो देने चाहिए और उनको एक सिंपल चेकलिस्ट की तरह नहीं ट्रीट करना चाहिए कि उनके अंदर की सारी सारी डिटेल्स अपने को अच्छे से देनी ही है, नॉट जस्ट कि दे दिया करने, या जस्ट बिकॉज कि बोला है इसलिए वो काम किया ऐसा। ठीक है। थैंक्स मच फॉर वॉचिंग, बाय।